Hello, Maria. How are you?
Hello, Giotto. I'm well, thank you. And you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. So, in
Good.
this video, we talk about after enlightenment. So,
Yeah,
what the experience looks like, because I think a lot of people have maybe a kind of distorted idea of what it looks like. Maybe they think
yeah,
about some kind of nirvana,
yeah,
constant feeling of extreme joy, and I'm not sure what it's supposed to. I mean, I'm not sure what how it looks like in the imagination of people,
yeah.
but maybe they feel that you live in some constant ecstasy,
Right,
which is completely wrong. So let's see what it actually looks like.
right. Yeah, let's talk about that. Um, I guess it's easiest to go on personal experience, but it depends what tradition you come from, doesn't it? Or what you've been reading, or what you'd expect from enlightenment, right? But a lot of people, I think, do mistakenly think that it is a type of state that you achieve, like a state of mind, um, and that state is some kind of permanent state as well. So, as if you're always going to be joyful, you're always going to be full of
So
compassion.
by a state, you mean like an emotional state?
Yes, or even a mental state, you could say. People can
But because just
conflate.
to be clear, because to me it's not completely clear what is a mental state. So more like a mood.
Yeah.
How would you
Um,
represent that mental state? Is it like is it an emotion? Is it a mood? What would be a permanent mental state? Just because it seems to be very abstract
right.
word.
Yes, it is an abstract word. I remember people who were supposing what enlightenment would be like, or in actually teaching what it should be like, which is a mistake if you haven't done it yourself, right? It's a bit the blind leading the blind, but that's often the situation you're in. And I remember people talking about it, enlightenment being a state of constant creativity, for example, as
Mm.
if the mind is constantly creative and thinking of, in creative terms, but also always feeling good, always feeling, compassionate, loving, wise, as if you're
So kind of
manifesting
like
these
emotional.
qualities.
So we could say like emotional state. So the expectation will be like a sort of permanent positive emotional state, like
Yes,
basically as
yes,
if almost like saying to always be in a good mood.
yes.
From what you're telling me, that's the way I sense it. So
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the 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 idea that people would have is something like once you reach enlightenment, you're always in an amazing mood. Whatever happens, you're in a great mood.
yes, yeah. You do not really, yes, as if you're bulletproof, do not feel pain.
Yeah, but I will say,
So,
I mean, at least from my experience, and then you can share your experience, of course,
mm,
is not completely untrue. Yeah, in the sense that
right.
it's true that you kind of are in some sort of in general in some kind of positive mood. Is not extreme as in the sense of ecstasy or constant joy, but it's true that because you don't tell yourself those stories, it's like this mental suffering, like this, oh, this is not fair, this is not right. You can't, when
Hmm.
you look around, from my experience, I'm going to describe it the way I feel it, and then you tell me if it matches your experience. It's like when you look around yourself, I will say, I'm going to use this sentence. I hope it makes sense and you can relate to it. It's like you don't see problems, you see
Mm,
things. Now, so you see things, and those things, they don't necessarily have attributes as in good, bad,
mm,
problematic, not problematic. So I mean, of course, you may suffer, you may break your leg and feel pain, but also emotional. So I mean, maybe, a loved one dies, you will still feel sad, or your cat dies, you will
hmm.
feel sad,
Yeah,
or you lose a lot of money, you will be very unhappy. Yes, of course. But it's kind of without the extra drama. So
yeah,
painful without the extra drama, we could say. It's like you don't go hysterical about it. You say
right,
shit, that's really bad, but you don't go hysterical about it. You don't
right.
lose your mind about it. So maybe you become more like kind of a psychopath, but it's not completely true either, because You can still have emotions like normal people,
Sure.
but you don't build upon them. So those emotions are just natural
Mm,
emotion, and it's not really that you're in a good mood all the time. I will say you are in whatever mood you are for the day,
yeah.
but you're not going to make it worse with some bullshit, let's say. So usually maybe
Mm,
everything is fine, but some nonsensical idea will come in your mind. This is wrong, this is unfair, this shouldn't be like this. And so
mhm,
even if you wake up in a good mood, it will quickly go to a bad mood. This doesn't happen.
no.
But of
No,
course, if you break your leg or you lose all your money or someone you love dies, you will still feel sad.
for sure. Yeah. I think that, yeah, I think there are some sort of basic emotions, if you like, that are to do with, connection, which are love and loss, grief and love, which are kind of, they're just like what occur, like you, I lost a dog recently, not to death, but he had to be sent back to where his previous owner, and I felt that as like my heart hurt. I could
Mm,
feel it, and my heart did hurt because I had put love and effort and time and care into this little dog, and and yeah, but it did strike me even then when it really, really did hurt that it wasn't going into any um drama, as you put it. It wasn't going
yeah,
into any,
mental drama, let's say, like which is
yeah,
what the stories are.
which I know in the past it would have definitely done and really rocked my world and probably put me off doing whatever I was doing for days or
Ah,
that
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing. So yes, I mean that's coming back to the first dart or first arrow, second dart, second arrow, however you want to call it. You do still get the first darts, don't you? You still do get
yes.
things happen which are not what you prefer or downright painful, actually, um, at times. But I think it feels like, in comparison to pre-awakening, it just feels like another world because even with the pain you're not going into all that creation, all that, nonsense
I think
and
we could
bullshit as
say
you
it
put it.
feels lighter. So you
Yeah.
still have those emotions, but they feel lighter. Whereas
Yes.
if not, they could feel very heavy. So
Yeah.
you could have emotions of joy or of love, but also of sadness, of disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe disappointment is more difficult because you
Mm-hmm.
don't really have all those expectations, but you can still be sad or very
Yeah.
unhappy, like about something that happens.
Yeah.
But it's still lighter. It doesn't come with like, oh my God, what's going to happen? This is the end of the
Right.
world.
No.
It's like shit, this
No.
is terrible. But
No.
that's it.
Yeah, you're not resisting the how it feels, basically, and you're not
Yeah.
resisting the
Because you're not
reality
judging. So you're
of
not
what's happening.
judging the emotion. So in some way, it makes the emotion lighter because you're not judging it.
I believe that's true. I think it can pass through, things can pass through much quicker as well. Um, you know, eh, from that perspective, because you're not chewing the cud mentally on or emotionally
Yes.
and adding to the whole thing. I remember when I first stopped reacting. I mean, and that's going back to the desire and ill will, but it sort of carried on actually into the higher fetters, this feeling of detachment at first. And it felt like a quite a cold detachment in comparison to what I used to feel like. Because I think I
Mm.
used to be really on a big roller coaster all the time and adding an awful lot of drama to my everyday existence and mental states and communications um and so to be free of all that initially felt really, really almost frighteningly cold because yeah,
Mm.
I just realized I'm just not interested in doing that drama. I'm not interested in other people's
I
dramas.
think this is
I'm
an important point. So it's like,
yeah.
it's not that you're
Sorry,
not
the cough.
interested in the thing itself, but you're not interested in the drama. So you are interested in the dog, but you're not
Sure.
interested in the drama of the dog, you
No.
see, or the drama of
No.
losing the dog. So it's not that you become unemotional or like completely
No.
like ice, made of ice. You still care
Yeah.
about the dog. You
Yeah.
still care about the loss of the dog. It still affects you, but you don't care about the
Sure.
drama of losing the dog.
Yes.
But you care
I,
about the dog.
yeah, I cared. I care. I care. I still care. I might, try and retrieve it later if I can by some means.
Ah,
But I might do something. But basically, it's if I fail or if I succeed, it's not going to, you know, be a case of everything's wonderful again, or everything's
it's the end of
disastrous
the
or
world, yes.
terrible. I don't go to those extremes anymore at all. Um, and yeah, like I said, I mean, initially it felt like a sort of cold detachment, but I don't think it. I don't think it really was. It was just that in comparison to how
Yeah, by
that roller
contrast to
coaster,
all the
by
drama,
contrast,
it feels cold, but in
it feels
reality,
cold.
it was just drama in your mind that doesn't really exist.
Sure. I mean, I still have a responsive feeling to, I don't know about you, but I can still respond to people and things and um, life. In fact, in some ways, I feel like more responsive because I'm not so wrapped up in my own mental or emotional dramas. It actually frees you, I think, to be more in the world and responsive if you want to be.
Yeah, I think that in some way it what it does is that you are more free to interact with the other person because
Yeah,
you're not interacting with yourself. So it's like when you have the drama in your mind, you're most likely just talking to yourself. So there is little room to
that's a good
talk
point.
with the other person. But once you remove the stories, it's different because now there is no time spent talking with yourself because there is no story in your mind. So the time is spent only speaking with the other person. So you can actually
Mm,
connect. Basically, you have a lot more room to connect with other people because
mm,
you're not spending so much energy to connect with yourself. I mean, it's
yeah,
kind of a bullshit connection. So you don't, instead of spending all this time thinking about yourself and
yeah,
your stories, you can actually start to think about other people and how you relate to them.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's true. And yes, it's like you've emptied out the pot, as it were, of all the rubbish, and you just left with the ingredients. It's a bit like that, isn't it? And
Yes.
you're just left with
Yes.
um, what's actually in front of you, whatever you're feeling. I think the ninth and tenth fetter can come as a bit of a surprise to people, even when they've worked through all the previous ones and they no longer react or they no longer do the subject object. I'm the center of the universe. Um, thing because I think it's very embedded. I mean, it's supposedly embedded in our potential nature. It's like our basic tendencies are to expect to say always feel good or that there is such a state attainable. And a lot of people have read about waking up or enlightenment as being, say, in a positive mental state all the time, to be to feel good all the time, to have sort of perfect behavior, perfect morality, perfect whatever. And as we know, perfection is not a thing, um,
Yes.
for one thing. And it's just not like that. The big surprise, which you could say is a bad surprise, but it's not, is that you are going to still sometimes not feel good. There is no place of security that you're going to find, or final resting place, as it were. Like, so you're going to achieve this great
Yeah,
state of
I
peace.
think there is this idea of like heaven heaven on
Heaven on
earth,
earth. Yeah.
which is kind of nonsensical because I mean, as long as you have a body and you can break your leg, so I'm not sure. But one interesting thing, I will just
Mm.
mention it like just like this. So before I had some guy that was kind of an expert in Buddhism. He was kind of teaching me, and
Mm.
it was interesting because he was. I mean, this is kind of pure traditional Buddhist theory about
Yeah.
those heaven things. So this idea that when you die, you can go to some heaven or some hells, and they're like I don't know 7 or I don't remember, or a large number, maybe 30. I don't remember. Lots of heavens and lots of hells, and
Hmm.
the idea was that but you wouldn't go forever, so it was based on this idea of karma, as in punishment, reward and punishment. And so
Uh-huh.
if you do great stuff, you will go in those heavens. At the great, I mean, the nicer the stuff you do, the higher the heaven, but then
Yeah.
you wouldn't stay forever. So you will stay in that heaven maybe a million years, but then you will
Hmm.
come back on earth
Hmm.
again. And it's like, or if you do like bad stuff, you will go to one of those hell, but again, that will not be forever. And you will come back on earth. And so there was this idea that there was this kind of afterlife with those heavens, but then you
Hmm.
will end up returning anyway, even if after a
Right.
long time, until you reach enlightenment. And enlightenment was kind of different because it was not a heaven, it was actually much superior. And the idea was that Buddha recommends not to try to go for those heavens because they are impermanent, whereas to go for enlightenment, which is permanent. I mean, it seems like a lot of nonsense now that, but
Now that
I
you.
think it can be interesting as a topic of discussion how the
Mm,
reality of enlightenment compares to this idea. So, because
yeah.
it's not really heaven on earth, there is, I mean, it doesn't feel like, at least, and I'm not even sure, to be honest, what heaven is supposed to be, because it's like those depictions of heaven seems kind of really boring and terrible. It's like stuff like, like maybe nice
Mm,
music and like honey, and I
yeah.
mean, because at the time there was not even internet, so it's like, it seems like, I mean, I will get bored. It's like, imagine, let's say I go
Mm,
to the beach, it's like, sure, I
mm,
will sit on front of the beach and I will watch the sea, and maybe I will swim, and maybe I will drink some coconut juice, and I assume those things are available in that heaven.
yeah.
But then I will get bored after 10 minutes if I don't have my phone.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, what I'm going to do, just stare at, I mean, I cannot stare at the sea for like a million years. I rather like cease to exist. It's like I rather. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's
Um,
kind of interesting this,
mm,
because those heavens, they seem quite boring. Even the best one is like, they don't
yeah.
seem very interesting, those heavens. So
There are lots of sutras, aren't there, with the Mahayana, some Mahayana sutras apparently go into great detail about these types of heavens. And yeah, you have scented trees and you have, yeah, or you have constant wafts of beautiful smells and jeweled trees as well, I think. So everything's, in those old fashioned terms, everything is gold and beautiful and fragrant and,
yeah, but it's
you're,
not interesting. So the thing is,
yeah,
it may be beautiful, but it's not interesting. So I rather
yeah,
be like, let's say, in a small shitty apartment, but have access to internet and I can like learn interesting stuff, than being in a mansion. I mean,
right.
at the end of the day, we probably, the average, I mean, maybe not the average person, but let's say someone who is kind of a little bit upper class maybe lives
Hmm.
better than a king like 200 years ago. There is
Right.
so much content, so much information you can learn. It's like,
Hmm.
sure, I mean, they had a big castle, but so what? I mean, maybe they
Right.
even, I think the heating was not even, there was no heating. It's like, so,
Probably freezing. Yeah.
yes. So, I mean, I rather have a small apartment with heating than a big castle without heating. So
Right.
it's like those heaven, I mean, besides that, they are outdated, and they are also related to the culture of the time. So
They are. I think that's the main point
they,
there, isn't it?
they
Yeah.
are also nonsense in the sense that, I mean, if they are supposed to be something absolute, then
Mm,
why are they related to 2000 years ago,
exactly.
because of
Yeah.
course at the time they couldn't, I mean, I assume most people didn't even know how to read and write, so they didn't say there is a library, because if most people, at least they would have said there is a library with all the
Right.
books you can ever desire.
All the books you could ever
Yeah.
desire.
you
Yes,
know
that's true.
but
Yeah.
because most people couldn't read, there was no library, there was just the gold and the nice smell. So those
Yeah.
haven't, they seem quite boring. So the enlightenment, what it gives you,
Well, I think it's
it
also misleading in a bad way because it does sort of imply that you're going to be in a state of constant pleasure, doesn't it? Whether you've got a small flat with internet
but
or, the
but
mansion with
even
gold
worse,
and
I think it
yeah,
even implied that that's what you should be aiming for, and that it's better
exactly.
to have this, which is actually nonsense, because it
Yeah.
would be super boring.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's one of the reasons, aside from people's natural tendencies to, want the impossible things. But it is another reason why people seek out mental states. They're chasing positive mental states basically, and a sort of false equanimity, really, which is you can get temporarily in a very very equanimous and peaceful and happy state.
Like
Um,
through meditation, you mean?
through meditation,
Yeah.
yes, as some people might through drugs, but you can certainly do it with meditation. Um, but the point being that without insight, or if you're still grasping and reacting and doing all those things that you do, um, it's going to come crashing down. You know,
I think there is
unless
some ritual. So go
yeah.
ahead, finish. Sorry.
Well, it's not even stable, is what I'm saying. You can.
Yeah, of course, it cannot be stable if it's just a state, but because it's not a realization, so it didn't. I think the difference is that
Oh,
the realization of the enlightenment, it produces a true transformation of yourself, whereas the
yes.
state does not produce a transformation. So let's say if I smoke a joint now and I get high, I'm in
Hmm.
a state where I'm high, and then in a few hours I'm not high, but there is no transformation. But if I
Right.
realize something, let's say I learn something, it can be a real transformation. So
Yes.
the state of enlightenment is a real transformation. It's not a state,
Yeah.
not a transformation
It's
like you mutate into something weird, but it's like because a
no.
realization is a transformation of your world and the way you see things. Whereas a state doesn't transform anything. It's just you that you just
Yes.
feel different.
No, it's a radical change. It should be anyway, I guess, a radical change of perspective that's irreversible. It's not going to, you know, on a good
Yeah,
day
a realization
be
is
there.
irreversible.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I
But not
guess
because there is
that's,
something magic about it, just because when you realize that Santa Claus doesn't exist, it's not that you can say, oh, actually, it does exist. I mean, it
yeah, you
obviously doesn't exist.
exactly. It's on that level. Yeah, really. You can't
So, no, I wanted to
recreate the
say
illusion.
so.
Yeah.
I think I've heard that there is kind of a ritual that some monks, I'm not sure if it's in India or like in Thailand, maybe some Buddhist monks, like kind of very advanced monks that they are like deeply into meditation. They
Mm-hmm.
kind of go into some like last meditation when they're old and they just meditate. And I think they don't eat, they don't drink,
Mm-hmm.
and then they just die doing that meditation. And
Mm.
then maybe they try to, I'm not sure, some of them, I'm not sure. No, maybe they eat some leaf that kind of slowly poison them, but also ensure the body doesn't rot, and then the body just dries but doesn't rot. And it's like, and they believe that this is going to lead to some kind of enlightenment or some kind of, maybe
Mm-hmm.
enlightenment is not the right word, but like ascension. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Like
Right.
you go straight to this heaven. So
Right.
just because you
Yeah.
go into this meditation, of course, I mean, I mean, I understand that it's very difficult to do what they do. Yeah, it's like because you need a lot of self discipline and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of training. I understand it's very difficult. I also think it's pointless, but
Right.
I respect the fact that it's difficult. So
Yes. Right.
in
Okay.
in in my opinion, it's pointless, but I respect the fact that it's difficult and it
Mm.
requires a lot of discipline. It's not easy to do. But then
Mm-hmm.
why? I mean, why? What sense does it make? Why will this produce any kind of magical change? It's like it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, so you enter this. It's like it's almost, I think, as if they believe that because they can enter into that state, that if at the instant when they die they are in that state may continue forever, some,
Yeah.
as if there was some kind of unwritten rule of the universe that the feeling or the state that you have in the instant you die you will have forever. So it's like if I'm angry when I die, I will be angry forever. It's like, and if I'm sad, I
Yeah.
will. It kind of doesn't make sense, but it's like, I mean, that seems to be the logic behind this tradition. I think the idea that if you're in
Mm.
this deep state while you die in this deep state, then maybe this deep state will continue forever.
I think again is I don't know, but I think it is still based on erroneous ideas about you know um, attaining or particular states being particularly meaningful. And I think there are the ideas of proximate consciousness with death, and I don't know whether they're more in the Tibetan tradition or um, yeah, or the Hinayana. I'm
But I
not,
think
or the
let's do it step by
I'm
step
not
because
sure.
I think it's interesting what you're saying, and I want to ensure that
Okay.
first that I understand it and that everyone else that is listening understand it. So
Yeah.
you say people attribute a meaning to those states, but
Yes.
that's a big assumption. I mean, why would that state have any meaning? So yes, you're conditioning your brain to be relaxed or to have some kind of brain wave that is, I don't know, alpha, beta, whatever. So sure, of
Right.
course, I mean, of course, meditation works. I mean, I'm not good at it, but I think you are. So I mean,
Well.
sure, you can go almost into a trance
Mhm.
and feel very good and very relaxed.
Sure.
But why would that have any meaning? It's like you can also take a drug and feel that state. So it's like, but for some reason, people say, yeah, but if you do it without the drug, I mean, why? It's
Mm.
like, my first question would be, and I mean, it's actually your question. Why would that state have any meaning? It's just a state. You are entering into a state. I don't see
That's a
why that
good
should have any
it's a good
meaning.
question. Yeah. I think because a lot of those meditative states, they sort of because you're letting go temporarily of the mental constructions that or the reactions or whatever it is that you normally add on. Um, it's like you do have a glimpse potentially of the awakened state because you've got you've got rid of the subject, you've got rid of uh, real things. You can even go into a state where there's nothing happening, literally nothing. I mean, I haven't ever gone that far into meditation. There's always been
Uh-huh.
something going on. But I do know one or two people who who could literally be in a state of nothingness.
Like
Um,
super deep meditator, so no thoughts at all.
no thoughts whatsoever. Yeah, nothing arising. But also, it's as if the world disappears. And time.
Mm.
They can be in this state for they don't even know how long they've been in that.
Ah,
So I guess, but the funny thing is, and a few of us have found this, is that once you wake up and you have the actual experience irreversibly anyway, whatever it is. So you've got rid of the subject illusion, you've got rid of the reactivity illusion, you've got rid of the I am, and it's not going to come back. You can't actually recreate those meditational states anymore.
you cannot?
So
Why? How come?
no, well, well, it's because they are about a temporary dismantlement of those constructions, if that makes sense. So you'd have to construct them first to have a pro to have a.
Ah, but
It's
then you
not
can
that you're
still feel this relaxation, this good feeling, no?
yeah, but without the kind of yeah, I mean you can. What do you mean? You can still feel
No, no, because
uh,
I think that, let's say, that meditative state probably
mm,
comprises two elements. One is that you're not thinking, so the story will not arise in your mind because you're not thinking,
right,
but also you feel good because of the relaxation. So, of course, it will feel less impactful if you have reached enlightenment already because you don't feel the difference because you already don't tell yourself stories. So, it's not
right,
different because you no stories before meditation, no story during
yeah,
meditation, but still you will still
mm-hmm,
have maybe this component of feeling good because
mm-hmm,
of the relaxation and the closing your eyes. And
mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess there may still be some good feeling in meditating even after enlightenment, no?
Yes, there
Or it's
can be.
completely pointless.
No, it's not completely pointless. I do think that, it has its place. Say someone suffers a lot from anxiety or from very, being very scattered mentally,
Yeah, I
to
see.
have
It can help
to
them
have it,
focus. Yes.
yeah, to learn focus with samatha meditation could be really, really helpful. Um, for that person, and it's naturally calming and sort of condensing, if you like. If you tend to be scattered and all over the place and very anxious and high energy, it will help you be calm. And similarly, people who really have a lot of emotional difficulty might really benefit from doing these loving kindness meditations, where you're,
Mm,
maybe for the first time, not hating yourself and not hating everyone else, or quite a lot of people. And you
yes,
kind of can just expand emotionally. But again, that one's going to have more of a temporary effect, I think. But it can
of
be
course, of
useful.
course.
Again, giving
Eh,
people a glimpse of what it's like to be non-reactive. To actually, yeah, to be
because just to
okay with.
specify something, so it's not that you're not reactive, because I think there is an important point here, because
Right.
usually meditation that we are using as a kind of benchmark or comparison here is
Yeah.
associated with discipline. So
Right.
so people may think that you don't react because you are self-control, or you're, but it is not true. It's not that you
Right.
don't react, it's that you don't feel any need to react at all.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So it's not that you're hungry as a metaphor. It's not that you're hungry, but you can control your urge to eat. Is that you
Right.
just do not feel hungry at all,
Yes, 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 yes. I mean,
because
yeah,
it
that's it.
comes from a realization. It doesn't come through effort. There is no effort in enlightenment. Whereas in meditation, there may be some effort, especially for
For
someone who
sure.
is starting, I guess.
For
But in
sure.
enlightenment, once you have achieved it, there is absolutely zero effort. It's just a
Yeah,
completely natural state that you actually cannot get out of it, even
that's
if you
right.
want it. Well, maybe because it's not a state. I mean, this is just a matter of
Mm.
definition. But even if you wanted to, you cannot get out of it.
Yeah, maybe that's true. I mean, it's funny. Someone was telling me last night, someone in the local town, who's not a Buddhist, they told me that they'd started learning to meditate and they wanted some advice. They seemed to think that they were uniquely terrible at it because I sat down and I was just thinking about this and I was thinking about that. And, it's like all the thoughts that go off. And of course, when you start meditating, you just realize what a big monkey mind you have. And it can be
Mm,
really shocking, right? So, yeah, and you can, as you imply, usefully employ discipline. You can learn how to apply, the antidotes or to these what are traditionally called hindrances to meditation. So, for example, if you've got high energy, you can focus lower in the body. There's various tricks you can and things you can learn so that you can manage and manage yourself into a particular mental state and stay there even for some time. Um, but some people transpose that into insight work as well, and they sort of think when we're doing desire and ill will, the reactivity illusion, they think, oh, I'm going to learn how to finally manage my anger or whatever it is, my longing for whatever it is. And they do approach it like a sort of, it's like um, uh, a management of reactivity thing, which misses the point, because actually you're not trying to get rid of anything. You're not trying to sort of squash or, even in like meditation, you temporarily get it out the way. Okay. Um, but you're not even trying to do that. You're actually trying to even exacerbate maybe how you normally react and look at it in a very precise way to see whether you really need to do it. And then it's only when that illusion is dispersed that you just naturally don't get the reactivity coming up um, anymore. So it's not like you then have to manage it anymore because it's not arising.
there is nothing to manage, of course, because there is nothing that happens. So there is nothing to manage.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But
But
coming back to this thing you mentioned, the monkey mind, so I
yeah.
never really got this one. I mean, maybe
No.
I'm just weird. I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, I think it's nice and convenient that, you have thoughts because usually those have ideas and stuff. So in some way, I think people confuse the monkey mind and, let's say, the stories that you tell
Mhm.
yourself when you believe
Mhm.
in, before enlightenment, you tell yourself a lot of nonsensical stories, but it's not the same because
Mm.
you may be very disciplined and like have a very quiet mind, but still you will just tell yourself a quiet story. Like you will be like this, and then think, oh yeah, this is wrong. It's like, or you
Yeah.
can have a very active mind, but you just don't tell yourself stories. So I have a very active mind. So you could say I have monkey mind. But in this monkey mind, there are no stories, but I just get
Mm.
lots of idea and thoughts and stuff, but those
Yeah.
are not stories. And I think it's disconnected. So in the sense that removing the
Mm.
story has nothing to do with what they call the monkey mind. It's like
Right.
the monkey mind is having an active mind, and I think it's a great thing. And you can have a slow and inactive mind
Mm.
and
Mhm.
still tell yourself stories about this is wrong, this is unfair, blah blah blah.
Oh
Or you
yeah.
could have a very active mind and tell yourself stories. So personally, I rather have an active mind and have realized, let's say, enlightenment and not tell myself stories rather than have a quiet mind, because the quiet mind once in a while will still produce a judgment anyway. It's not because it's quiet that it's gone, or like you're
Right.
dead. So I think
No.
this monkey mind is also kind of, I mean, it's not a good metaphor. I think it's this idea that because it's almost as if they are telling you that the answer, the solution, or the way to enlightenment is quiet mind, but it's not.
No.
It's removing judgment, is removing
Yeah.
stories. So
But
because then
there's
people
the
will just try
difference.
to spend,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the difference between the meditative approach or the developmental approach, where you're trying to develop particular mental states and you're trying to, perfect and everything, and the more insight approach. Now, ideally, you'd kind of have a combination of the two. You might start off with quietening practices where, temporarily it can be useful for people to still what you call the monkey mind, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not like, when you wake up, you still have your thoughts going, don't you? Thankfully. I mean,
yes,
if
yeah,
we, if
of
we
course, or you wouldn't function. But I think, yeah,
yeah,
this monkey
yeah,
mind thing is misleading because it makes people believe that that's what they have to get rid of. So they have to get rid
Yeah.
of their thoughts,
Yeah.
and so they try to discipline, exercise, like focus on the breathing, meditation, all this nonsense, to kind of try to think less, as if that will bring anything. It's like
Yeah. Well, also
whereas
that
in reality
just,
they have to realize
yeah.
that they are telling themselves lots of stories which are nonsense and produce drama.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the first fetters, obviously, you do look at the nature of thinking a bit and thoughts, because mainly because people identify so much with their thinking. Before they wake up, they really think or assume there is a thinker behind, an author of the thoughts, for example,
Mm,
or even that the thoughts have this special power of their own. Like the thoughts can know what they're thinking. I mean, bizarre things, but it's to do with the identification with thinking. So that is something that I would look at with people, but I do stress with them not to try and make thoughts the enemy. It's not like you're trying to stop your thoughts. It's not like you're trying to still your thoughts. It's just to look at whether there is any separate self behind them, creating them. You know, and or in control of them as well, because that's the other fantasy. I think that there's,
yes,
um,
yes, yes.
an agency of behind the thinking.
But in some way, I think what people need to understand is that the enlightenment process is an introspection process. So actually, it requires an active mind. It requires thinking. It's like it's through thinking that you look inside yourself and you realize that certain things that you believe just don't add up. They don't make sense. So
Right.
this idea of the quiet mind as if the
Mm,
ultimate goal is your mind to be completely quiet is nonsense. Actually, it will create a very big disservice, because with this quiet
yeah,
mind, you are not
yeah,
thinking and you're not going inside yourself. You're not doing the introspection. You're just in this kind of super relaxed state, and
yeah.
nothing is
That's a
actually
good
going
point.
on. It's like once you get out of it, I mean, you're not any better than when you entered that
Mm.
state. So
No, that's a very good point.
you
You do use the mind to
you
overcome
need the
the
active mind.
illusions.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need the active mind to
yeah,
realize that certain ideas or stories you tell yourself are nonsense, are illusions, and then you realize. So it's a
yeah,
process of realization, and realization requires active thinking. It's not about being sleepy or being
yeah.
meditating. You must think, and then you realize, and then that's
Mhm.
it.
Well, yeah, you need to, I mean, identify what it is that you assume. And this can be kind of unconscious thoughts, but it can be a real belief, and so it can be really helpful to formulate in your, to make it conscious. Oh, I really do believe that I've got a little man in the box, who's making the strings work, or projecting onto the screen. I really do believe that there is a, um, I don't know, a subject in relation to all these objects. So it's partly bringing into the light what you actually think, as in what you believe, and then
Yes.
looking to see whether that's true or not. You know, and to some degree, yeah, you do need to be able to.
I mean,
It
you
does
need to
help to
think
have
about
some.
it. You need,
Yeah,
because you need to look at it. You need to look at your story and examine it
yeah,
from every angle, from every perspective, and realize that it kind of doesn't have a strong foundation, that it doesn't make sense.
yeah. It's true. I mean, some people, like, I think, yeah, some people use the thinking more in that way, but I think everyone benefits from having a bit of a conceptual construct, really, of what it is they're supposed to be looking at. um I used to find with, the question, it's like, when you're guiding people, it's like you're giving a pointing question which they then have to actually look at in their own experience and see whether or not
Mm.
it's true. um and it can be quite, you know it can be quite difficult for some people to even understand what it is they're supposed to be looking for. And so it does help to have some mental clarity, actually, or bring some mental, some thinking to bear, that, oh, what am I supposed to be looking for here? And then you drop the concepts and you just look at everything.
Yeah, I think without thinking, you cannot do it. So
Yeah,
you cannot like
exactly.
reach enlightenment through just meditation, like through not non-thinking. So let's say you are
Right.
an absolutely amazing meditator, and you can enter a state of zero thoughts, and you meditate 8 hours a day, you're not going to get any closer to enlightenment at all, because
No.
in that time your thinking is suspended. So in some way nothing is going on. I mean, maybe it's very relaxing, and
Yeah.
sure, those thoughts that maybe you don't like are not popping up in your mind during the meditation, but once the
Hmm.
meditation is over, they will pop again because you have not removed them at the root. You have not
Yes.
addressed the problem at its root.
Yeah, I think that's precisely it. Yeah. Yeah. What changes do you notice, Giotto, in your everyday life since waking up? I mean, what's the most obvious um, result, as it were, for you, would you say?
So yeah, so I will say in general, I was not the kind of person that will get easily angry. I mean, it was extremely difficult for me to get angry. But still, maybe sometimes I could potentially, not often, take something personally. It was very rare,
Yeah.
but now it's impossible.
Right.
I would say that maybe sometime I will actually believe, maybe not in good and bad, that because that's kind of easier to realize that good and bad doesn't really make sense. But I could perceive certain things as being unfair, so fair versus unfair, or should. The should probably was definitely there. So this should not have been like this. This should have been different. It's like, or maybe not this is wrong, but this would have been better. Like exploring hypothetical alternatives as an improvement,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess there also was some sense of identity and of ego, as if I had to kind of, not much, but maybe a little bit, prove myself to myself, a little bit to others, and
Mm-hmm.
that there were things that I, in quotes, have to do, not because someone is forcing me, but because it's best if I do it. And
Right.
by doing this, this idea that by doing this I become this. So this
Yeah.
idea of becoming, so the idea of becoming through action, so that you want to be this kind of guy, and so
Mm.
by doing this kind of action you become this kind of guy. But then you realize that the idea of this kind of guy doesn't make any sense, so you do the action if you want, and you don't do the action if you don't want. So still, I mean, I think I was not heavily conditioned, but I had some conditioning related to, like, fetter 4 and 5. So desire and
Yeah.
ill will, which is
Yeah.
basically the judgment or the idea that things could or should be different. And I had some issues maybe with fetter 8, the idea of where I was maybe trying to defend or to project a certain
Mm-hmm.
identity, a certain version of me. So I
Mm.
want to see myself in a certain way. I want others to see me in a certain way. And so I will do effort for this to
Mm.
happen. Whereas today I wouldn't do any effort for any of
Right.
this. It just doesn't make any sense.
Mm. Yeah. And so I guess you feel freer without I mean, what is the main side effect, if you like, of dropping those
Yeah. So let,
shoulds
let me think.
and
Let me try to think. So
yeah.
okay. So
Mm.
what is the main feeling? I
Yeah.
think I will define it as a blend of peace and acceptance. So
Mm.
kind of it's more peaceful because it's not that, I mean, it's the feeling is that you are never put into question. It's like, yes, things happen to you, but more like a witness. So you're not being put into question. So there is no judgment. Basically, it's like, let's say there is a football match. It's not that you are the player and you're like, oh my god, like I'm going to hit or miss this goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's you are one of the spectators, of the fans, and of course
Mm-hmm.
you still care if your team wins or not, but it's more detached. I mean, no one is going to question you. There is not this idea that you will be questioned either by yourself or by others. You will be put into question. It's like it's more peaceful, it's
Mm.
more calm, because it's more like things happen to you, but that's it. So it's like no one is really going to judge you, especially yourself, because it's like, yeah, I mean, this thing happened to me. It's not that I cause this as I am some kind of origin of
Right.
something, and then I have some
I see.
responsibility and some blame and guilt and why I did it. I could have not done it, and blah
Right.
blah blah blah.
The
So the,
identification with your experience has gone. Uh, you're not sort of, yeah,
I'm not
you're
sure.
not.
I don't want to use complicated word because then it can be confusing. I will say that
Okay.
it feels like things happen to you, but not in a negative way that you're a victim, more in the sense that you're a witness, you're a spectator, you're looking at the things happening, and you're still immersed. So it's still an immersive experience. So it's not that
Hmm.
you feel detached, because there is this
No.
idea of detachment in Buddhism. I think this is nonsense. It's not that you feel detached. So you still feel very immersed in the experience,
Hmm.
but you don't feel more like a witness. So it's like you feel immersed in the experience, but it feels more as if it's happening to you. So you have no blame or responsibility or whatever. It's like
Mm.
the experience is happening to you, but it's still very immersive. It's not a detached experience,
No,
but
I get
it's
that.
not.
Mm.
You can also say it seems maybe paradoxical for someone who has not reached enlightenment, but I will say it feels like um what I want to say. What it's like. So it happens to you.
Mm.
It's immersive, but it's not about you. So I think this is, you see, this idea of about you. So
Hmm.
before enlightenment is really about you,
Yeah.
so, and after enlightenment, it's not that it's detached or whatever, it's very immersive.
Hmm.
You feel very connected to reality,
Yeah.
but it's a lot less about you. It's maybe not about you at all. So
Right.
what changes is the idea of it being about you, but it's not that you're more detached or that you care less or that you're somewhere else. No,
No.
no, no. It just feels that it's not about you, and by not being like, at the end of the day, when you watch, let's say your team playing, you are very immersed in the game. You
Mm.
really want your team to win,
Sure.
but it's not about you, because it's not you kicking the ball in the
Right.
goalpost or whatever it's called. So it's
Yeah.
not you kicking the ball around. So you don't have fear of any form of judgment, whatever. It's like it's happening to you. If your team wins, it's great. If your team loses, it's bad. It happens to you, but it's not about you. It's about the team.
Yeah.
So you see, so you're not the team, but you feel deeply immersed in the experience and with what the team is doing, but it's not about you. So I think the distinction is that this thing of about you that goes away and everything it implies.
Yes, although you got to be careful, don't you, with words, because I mean, when you say witness, which I know exactly what you mean about it's immersive, but it's not about you. I think that's a wonderful description, actually. But if you bring in concepts like the witness, that can lead some people to think that there is this detachment, actually, that
Mm,
there is this
I see.
part that's separate, that's
Yeah,
witnessing.
no, yes.
That's
So the point is, yeah, there is no detachment. If by
yeah,
in detachment we mean less immersive, so it's
right.
exactly as
That's,
immersive as before.
if not
So it
more,
doesn't
maybe.
feel, there is no
Okay.
distancing, there is no detachment, there is no separation. It's as immersive as before, but it doesn't feel that it's about you.
Yeah.
It's just whatever is happening, maybe to you. It's like it's happening to you, but it's not about you. As if almost you put VR googles and you're watching a movie in 3D. So it's deeply immersive, but
Yeah.
it's not about you.
Yeah. 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 Well, so yes, some people do say it's a bit like being in a simulation or something, actually. It's not quite how I feel it, but I
Well,
do get I do get I do get that
I
analogy.
so I will be careful again with the simulation
Simulation.
analogy,
Yeah.
because in some way, like let's say in Matrix, the movie, the
Mm,
simulation can very well be about you. So it's like
right. That's true.
the simulation doesn't imply that it's
No,
less about you. So it could be very interactive and be completely about you. It's just a different reality, but it
that's a
could
good
be
point.
completely about you, even in the simulation. Whereas here, it's more like it's a simulation, but more like you're watching a movie, a very immersive 3D movie, but it's
Yeah.
kind of a movie. So it's like it's happening to you. It's
Mm.
not about you. Whereas the simulation could be about you. So I think the idea of maybe a deeply immersive movie is better. Is more. It matches
Yeah.
more the experience that
Yeah.
one will have once they reach enlightenment. So it's very immersive. There is no detachment, but it
Mm.
doesn't feel that it's all centered around you and your actions and your responsibility and you having to do this and this will be better and you are this, you are that, and
No,
blah
no,
blah
that's
blah
true.
blah.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, I could quote you a couple of things which were from
Hmm.
a group who were
Yes,
trying to describe what awakening aspects were like and see if you can
let's see,
relate
let's
to
try.
them. Um, so somebody said, seeking stops. There no longer seems to be any need to fix what is happening or showing up. What is happening no longer seems wrong. So there's
Yeah,
no
I
need
think
to,
yes, because there is no
right,
judgment,
right,
because there is no image in reality that you're using to compare. So, because to say that something is wrong, you have to
right,
imagine in a different way and say that the way you imagine is right.
yeah,
But if you realize that this is just imagination, it has nothing to do with reality, it's
mm,
not wrong. It's just whatever it is. You're just
yeah,
not comparing it with an imagined reality that is in your mind.
yeah. Here's the bit that relates to what you were just talking about, right? Or a bit more similar. The sense of there being the field of awareness or consciousness is gone. There is no sense of consciousness awareness expressing itself, which is a way that people often describe awakening, I think mistakenly. But anyway,
I'm not
yeah,
sure I can even understand what you're saying. It just seems purely abstract concept that doesn't mean
yes,
anything. And they
exactly.
don't even seem to come from someone that has experience. Like what it was projecting consciousness. What did you say?
Oh, consciousness or stroke awareness expressing itself. And
Expressing,
that's like
but this seems like
I am
what's this guy
everything.
that say a lot of nonsense? Like there is a famous
Yeah,
guy,
yeah.
some Indian doctor, like in US, like I forgot his name, that he just say a lot of poetical like
Nonsense. Yeah.
sentences that don't mean anything. So it just seemed like like they all expressing the nothing. It's just pure nonsense.
Yeah. Well, I think whoever said this probably believed it before, but has realized it's not like that because they go on to say,
Ah, I see. So he comes
yeah,
from a point. So
yeah,
he had built this. He
yeah,
has heard this bullshit somewhere.
yeah,
Then he
yeah.
experienced it for real. Say, okay, this was bullshit.
He says, well, there is no sense of this consciousness awareness expressing itself.
Yeah.
He says there's no more identity, no more inner outer experience. And then he says it can seem as though you're living in a simulation or watching a movie, which is exactly
Uh
what you
huh.
were saying. You didn't
Yes.
like the simulation bit because it can imply
There
identification,
could be an
which
element,
is good.
yes, but as in
But
the
you know, the
movie.
watching
But
the
I will add
movie,
a
yeah,
very immersive movie because
very
if not,
immersive.
it feels that the movie is more detached. It's not more detached. It's a very immersive movie.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. What do you think of this statement? Various feelings or states do arise, but have no connection necessarily to what's actually happening. An interesting one, isn't it?
What is actually happening anyway? So to me, I'm not sure. So repeat. So certain state arise,
Various feelings or sensations do
a feeling
arise,
of.
but have no connection necessarily to what's actually happening.
It doesn't seem to make sense because it's like something has to happen. I say you break your leg, you feel pain, or your
Right.
cat dies and you're sad. So of
Yeah.
course the feelings have a connection with what is happening.
Right. Right.
But maybe they want to say the idea that then you're not building a story on top of it. I'm not sure. This one doesn't seem to make much
Yeah.
sense.
That's not, yeah. Well, that's partly why I ran it by you because I couldn't quite get that one myself. Um, yeah. Anyway, he does say no, or she, no more reified concepts, no sense of this is to see what they expected, but they didn't get. Yeah. No more
Ah, yeah, yeah,
sense
yeah.
of
Okay.
no sense of interconnectedness, which is another concept people have of
Mm.
so it's different. Interconnectedness is a concept, whereas immersive actually describes it much better. I think what the word
Yeah,
you used.
immersive, it just means that you are deeply into reality. So you're going to feel the emotion strongly. It's like you're not detached. You're not like, like that you don't care about anything. You are involved in reality like before, if not more, because now you're not distracted by your stories. So you're
Right,
even more immersed in reality. And
right.
what was the other thing you were saying? So, sorry,
Um, where
can you
is
repeat
it?
the sentence?
I'm trying to find it. No more reified concepts, no sense of interconnectedness,
Yeah,
impermanence,
interconnected. Yeah, so
emptiness,
immersive
etc.
versus interconnected. Yeah, and
All those
reified
ideas.
concept is just that you realize that concepts are just concepts. They don't mean anything.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. There you go. That's the point, really, isn't it? And one more paragraph might be good before we end it.
Yes.
This
Okay.
person describes it as it's not a positive or affirmative awake state. That's kind of what I was trying to say before. It's more like you're no longer asleep without the opposite, awake, being true.
I think this is
So,
not so bad. I mean, it's
no,
not, I don't think it's useful. It's kind of confusing,
yeah,
but you can see some truth in it in the sense that the enlightenment is not about adding some layers of truth, but it's about
right.
removing some layers of false stuff.
That's false stuff, exactly. And then the last bit is there's no need to be awakened. Something like this is no longer aspired to. You do not attribute meaning to things. The judgment and narrative is removed.
Well,
So,
for sure, the judgment is removed. I'm not sure what they mean by narrative, but the
yeah,
judgment is removed because, and then maybe the narrative is the story. So there is no story about things. So things are things. Like, let's say,
yeah,
let's make an example. So
yeah,
maybe in the old times, well, maybe even recently, they build a statue of a god, let's say some strange god that they worship, maybe a
yeah,
bull made of
yeah,
gold. It's like they build this big thing. And it's like, and I will also see it. I may say, wow, it's beautiful. It's a
yeah,
beautiful statue of a bull. But it
yeah,
doesn't have any meaning. It's not that I'm going to say, oh, here is the sacred statue of the bull
yes,
god. It's like,
no,
it's a nice statue. It's a nice work of
yeah,
art. Maybe it's done very well. And I can
mm,
appreciate it as a nice statue of a bull. But I
mm,
will not say, oh my God, here is the bull god statue as if it means something more than what it is.
mm. No, exactly. That's
It
it.
is just what it is.
It's just what it is. Yeah. I mean, we could go on, but running out of time here. So, yeah,
Okay, so
let's.
then let's see what we speak about next time.
All right, Giotto. Yeah. Take care.